Hear my thoughts on all the things that took place at Super Bowl 58 over this week on JG9 News. New content dropping every single day on that channel. And now, on with our feature presentation. How many times is Disney gonna drop the ball? Yeah, the past year or so has been very rough for the company, and I think that goes without saying. 2023 was supposed to be their marquee year. It was their 100th anniversary celebration, and they had a bunch of grand plans lined up, and they flopped. Outside of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, every single movie they had was a box office flop, and in the best case scenario, with Elemental, barely broke even. The Marvel Cinematic Universe might truly be dead from a public standpoint after the flops both critically and commercially of The Marvels and Ant-Man Quantumania. The flagship animated musical, Wish? That probably cost $500 million, since the general rule of thumb is whatever movie costs to make, double it if you want to find the break-even point due to advertising costs and other things along those lines. It hasn't even made $250 million. It was critically panned, and didn't even get a nomination for an Academy Award, not even for Best Original Song, a category that Disney always wins if they even so much as breathe. They made another Indiana Jones movie, and that flopped critically and commercially as well, losing probably somewhere around $200 million. This really has not been a good year at all for the mouse, but with the company bleeding money, they decided to spend $7 million on a Super Bowl ad to promote their streaming platform, Disney+. And the end result was, well, this. Just a white screen featuring black text of famous sayings that Disney properties have, and all the memorable quotes. Why they picked the quotes they did, I'm not sure, because there were some quotes that were way too long, and omitted some classics like Be Our Guest, but regardless, this ad drew a ton of criticism for looking insanely cheap. It was incredibly minimalistic, and felt like it was thrown together at the last minute, seeing as there were no actors or anything crazy from a production standpoint. Plus, do people want to read at the Super Bowl? And on top of that, some of the quotes flew by way too fast, to the point where you didn't have time to process it. And honestly, I didn't have a problem with the white background and text and all that. I totally get what Disney was trying to do here, and they definitely stood out. This Super Bowl, from an advertising perspective, was defined by celebrity cameos. Here's a product, here's a celebrity endorsing the product, buy our product. So Disney went the complete opposite approach, and they stood out in that regard. In that regard, I have no problem with what Disney tried to do here as a way to promote Disney+. The problem is that the execution was awful. They picked the absolute worst way to do it, in a way that made no sense whatsoever, considering the fact that this ad is extremely unlikely to move the needle at all. Number one, let's look at the data of Disney Plus subscribers. This past quarter, Disney Plus had 149.6 million subscribers across the world. That's a pretty drastic decline from what they had in the first quarter of 2023, when they had 161.8 million. So why do you think people unsubscribed, outside of the usual things like price hikes and the entertainment dollar being a bit too tight, especially with the rise of 10 million other streaming platforms? In all likelihood, it's the same reason many people unsubscribe from a platform. They don't like the new offerings that are there. They've seen everything they needed to. They've seen everything they wanted to. And there's nothing new to keep them on. So you decide that the best idea is to show off the properties that everyone knows you have? Your best idea to combat the loss of subscribers is to do that? Everyone knows what Disney Plus is at this point. Everyone knows what Disney is. I don't think there's a single soul out there that doesn't know what this streaming service is. It's like McDonald's or Apple or any of those other companies where you really don't need the Super Bowl from a brand awareness perspective. You know that Toy Story is owned by Disney. You know that The Lion King is a Disney property. You know all of that. But guess what? Everyone knows that Disney Plus has all the Disney properties. You've already got all the people who subbed to your streaming service based on that information. The Lion King was available on day one. If you really like that movie, you subbed already. Toy Story was available on day one. If you really like that movie, you subbed already. People aren't canceling because they don't know that these properties aren't there. People aren't on the fence about subscribing because they don't know that these properties aren't there. They know that The Lion King is there. They know that Toy Story is there. They're canceling for a completely separate reason, which is the lack of new content or quality of new content. So it doesn't make sense for them to stay on a platform where they've seen everything that they want to see already. So to play into nostalgia like you did throughout the entire Disney 100 celebration leads to the same results. Disaster. A commercial like this would have made a ton of sense back in 2020 when you were just starting out and the brand awareness might not have been there. An ad like this where you say, hey, all of your favorite Disney movies are now in one place and are available wherever you want? Great move. In 2024, when everyone knows who you are and everyone knows what a Disney movie is? Baffling. I'll give you a hypothetical scenario. Everyone knows who Mr. Beast is at this point. He doesn't need added brand awareness. You know the marquee videos he's made. Imagine if Mr. Beast decides to do an advertisement at the Super Bowl because he was losing a ton of subscribers because he started uploading less often. And when he did upload, the videos were of a lesser quality. And in the advertisement, all he does is highlight the videos that everyone's already seen. He does an ad like this, where it's just a white screen with black text. And he writes out things like, $456,000 Squid Game in real life. Last to leave circle wins $500,000. And I spent 50 hours buried alive. Like, that's not why people are unsubscribing. The goal of the ad is to get more people to subscribe to you. People are unsubbing because your newer videos aren't that good. And you decide to advertise by showing off videos that everyone's already seen and are not the reason people are becoming less infatuated with you? Again, this is a hypothetical, but you get why this doesn't make any sense from the Disney Plus standpoint. If people are unsubbing to you, it's because they don't like the new offerings you have, or don't know about the new offerings, or because they've seen everything they need to. So an ad promoting the stuff that they've already seen before and doesn't impact the root of the problem whatsoever doesn't seem to make any sense. But really, that wasn't the whole point of the commercial, because they did show one new property. Sort of. The point was to show that you had Taylor Swift's new tour on your service, the Eras Tour. In case you've been living under a rock, this artist right here is Taylor Swift. You may have heard of her before. Her boyfriend just won the Super Bowl. Anyways, she embarked and is still embarking on a tour promoting all of her albums, and it's the biggest tour of all time, selling out stadiums across the world and already generating 9 figures in box office revenue, with Swift getting an extra $100 million just for recording on film what she was already doing in the first place. The tour itself is amazing, and in a big war to be the streaming platform to get all the Swifties, Disney Plus won out, as they reportedly dished out $75 million to start streaming the concert movie beginning March 15th. Alright, so that's a pretty important thing you want to convey in this spot, especially seeing as millions of Swifties are watching the game for obvious reasons. Plus, it shows that something new is coming to the platform, and it could tap into a whole different audience. So then why, of all the possible taglines for this, would you use "ready for it"? There's a few reasons why this is, shall we say, problematic. Number one, and most importantly, "Ready for It" is a song off of the album Reputation. When you see those words, and you are a Taylor Swift fan, you immediately associate it with that album. And that means that you associate that with the Reputation tour, which is a tour that already happened, and that there's a concert film for out there that was on Netflix, but now is no longer there. So there's no available streaming platform for it. When you see "Ready for It", you might think, oh, Disney Plus got the rights to stream the Reputation tour concert film, which, don't get me wrong, would be a big deal, but it's a film that's been out for quite a while by this point, so it's not as urgent to watch as the Eras Tour, seeing as most people have probably seen that already if they're interested. So good job, Disney! You promoted the wrong freaking movie, and a movie that you don't even own the rights to! If you want a good comparison, imagine if U2 put out a concert film at the Sphere, which I'm assuming they'll do at some point. Then, there's a bidding war for who is going to be the streaming service to get the rights to that. When the war is over, Peacock wins, and they decide to promote the fact that they have the film by saying, "Coming soon, a 360 experience. Some people might associate that with the sphere, seeing as the images in the sphere are projected 360 degrees around you. But a lot of people would probably associate that with the U2 360 tour, one of the biggest tours of all time, which completely changed the game in terms of stadium tours and how artists set up their stages. So you might not even attract the audience you want, because a good amount of people might see that tagline and think to themselves, they have the 360 tour now? Cool. I've seen that before though, or I have it on DVD. You get how this can be a bit misleading, right? And might not convey the message you want, because it looks like you got the rights to a movie that, number one, you don't have, and number two, came out years ago and isn't the fresh one you want to convey. You want to convey the fact that you have the new Eras tour, while at the same time, making it clear that you don't have the rights to the movie yet, while at the same time, ensuring there's no confusion whatsoever? Here, I'll redo your entire ad, Disney. I'll redo your entire freaking ad. Change Ready for It to Meet Me at Midnight. That's the opening line to the song Lavender Haze, which was a pretty big hit. In fact, it actually charted higher on the Billboard Hot 100 than Ready for It did, so you might get more brand recognition that way. Yes, I know the charts aren't the end-all be-all. No one in their right mind would argue that Piano Man is the less popular of the two Billy Joel songs when compared to You're Only Human's Second Wind, even though the latter actually charted higher. But it can be a good indicator, and Lavender Haze might be a bigger song than Ready for It as it is. Still, even if it wasn't, by doing that, you're clearly conveying the fact that this is the Eras tour, because this is the first line said in the album Midnights, which is her most recent album, as in, the one she hadn't toured for yet before the Eras tour. It also just won the Grammy for Best Album. Then, you cross off Midnight, and you write March 15th. Boom! How easy and simple was that? You properly conveyed the fact that you've got the rights to this concert, and not an old concert from years ago, and you establish a date so that the general public knows when it's coming out, and can build up hype that way. Because here's another problem. A lot of people who had no idea what the ad was about probably did a Google search afterwards to type in Disney Plus Ready for It, and what they got was insanely confusing and answered none of their questions. People don't scroll past the first page on Google, so if you can't answer the question concisely there without even having them click on a link, you've lost them. Search engine optimization is huge. Well, this is what happens if you type that in. You get Ready to Run, a movie about an aspiring jockey. You get Ready or Not, another bizarre movie. You see Get Ready for Disney Plus Day, and you see Ready for Preschool. Side note, they really should have promoted Bluey. I don't know why they didn't promote Bluey during these quotes, but they should have done that instead of doing multiple Star Wars clips. Having said that, in other words, buried in the midst of the Taylor Swift stuff, which is what you actually want to convey, is a bunch of junk that you don't want to convey. Meanwhile, if you did my suggestion and the sensible thing, people would do a Google search afterwards and type in Disney Plus March 15th. And what do you know? The thing you want to promote actually pops up. Who would have thought? One simple change makes the ad that much more effective, and obviously, it wouldn't have cost you anything, seeing as this ad was in the same vein as the Life Miners ad, with nothing but text and costs no money whatsoever from an actor's standpoint or a production standpoint. As a side note, to learn more about that Life Miners ad, click the card in the upper right corner. So let's recap how Disney screwed up this ad, because this might have been the biggest, most catastrophic screw-up of the night. They promoted a movie that they do not have, and a Google search typing in that term with Disney Plus doesn't give you the direct answer. And with people canceling Disney Plus subscriptions because there's not enough new content on the platform to keep them engaged, they figured the best way to promote Disney Plus is for the rest of the ad to show properties that they have, even though everyone knows those properties are on Disney Plus, even though that's not the reason people cancel, and even though you don't exactly need brand awareness in that regard. Seeing as if you love Disney movies and love that nostalgia, you definitely have Disney Plus already, and this isn't going to sway you at all. You are trying to get the people who canceled or didn't have Disney Plus, and you failed by offering nothing. You are trying to get the Swifties, and you failed by telling them the wrong movie. And you did it all while throwing throwing $7 million down the drain. Absolutely fantastic stuff there. We won't know how successful this ad is until we see what the USA Today ad meter says, or what the critics say, or from a business standpoint, what the numbers say, because that's what matters at the end of the day. Pets.com had my favorite ad at Super Bowl 34, and they ceased to exist after like a lot of .com companies. So the numbers dictate a huge part in this. But my guess is that this will not work. Not at all. This ad simply conveyed the message that Disney Plus has Disney properties. It's Wilkins Hyundai and Subaru selling Hyundais and Subarus, which we all knew already, and didn't sway people to buy who previously canceled because they saw all these properties already. And the only new property they conveyed, they did it in such a backwards way that it was highly ineffective to the general public, and maybe even to Taylor Swift fans too. Because when Disney wishes upon a star, they're going to want to get that $7 million back. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.